Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. I am super excited about our guest today. He is a renowned cycling coach, a pioneer in power training for endurance athletes, coaching career spanning over 3 decades, guiding athletes to over 2,000 victories, including national titles and Olympic medals, author of several best-selling books on the use of power in training, racing, and triathlon, with a rumor that there's a new book coming. Please welcome the CEO and founder of Peaks Coaching Group, Hunter Allen. Welcome, Hunter.
Hey, Greg, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me on. This is an honor.
It's my pleasure. And as you know, we love talking about endurance and the endurance mindset. So, Hunter, how has your endurance mindset impacted your life unexpectedly?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one of those ones that I've thought about for a while, and trying to kind of put together how everything in your life kind of comes and in waves somewhat, and early on it was very unexpected that number one, that I would achieve, some success as a pro athlete. Obviously I was hoping to, but then that was really great. And then afterwards, very unexpectedly, the whole power training thing got started, and so all of a sudden, um, I went from being this super focused hyper athlete, to being in this coach role where I was now, you know, helping other people become even better. And so that was a big change in the mindset of me, and thinking more from a me selfish perspective. Because as a pro athlete in any sports, you kind of have to be a monk, right? I mean, you have to do everything has to be so focused on you, and then also going to working with other people, which was really cool. Um, and then it morphed into this really surprising change of that I was able to help a lot of people, and having kind of almost a responsibility, maybe, or not, maybe not responsibility, but an obligation to share this knowledge with as many people as I could. And so that was really how the book that Dr. Coggin and I wrote in 2006, Training and Racing with a Power Meter, came out. And it was like, wow, we can really impact a lot of people's lives. We're not solving cancer here or anything. Right. But, maybe we're getting people healthier, right? And we're keeping them healthy. And hopefully that prevents cancer down the road. Who knows, whatever.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's like, wow, this is a really great way to do that. So it kind of morphed from these different places over time. And I'm still in that place of, how do I help as many people as I can? What can I do to help them achieve their dreams? So, yeah, great question.
Super helpful. And I want to dig into that transition between pro athlete and coach, right? Because as an athlete, you've got coaches and you have opinions about their coaching at times. And then all of a sudden you're on the other side of the coin. Give us a sense of what that's like from both perspectives.
Yeah. I think that it's both challenging, and it's also liberating, because it's challenging when you're not so certain that the coach, what they're asking you to do is right, and so then you kind of like, well, I think this is a better idea here, and this is how I respond. And a good coach will then take that and say, okay, cool, I'm listening to you, the athlete, and then say, okay, let's work through this. Like, maybe there's, you're right, but maybe I also need to achieve this goal from a coach standpoint. I want you to work on this system of physiology that we're trying to improve, or we need to do this workout in order to get to this workout, so that then it leads to this success. So I think that's really good. But then it's also, like I said, it's very liberating as an athlete, because then you're just like, man, just tell me what to do. Right? I'll just go do it. I don't want to think about it. Right? Just like, okay, 10 hill repeats done. I'll go do those.
Yeah, there's something to that because it's just open up Training Peaks and then just start executing, right? And trust and verify sort of at the end. Hunter, it's been interesting sort of watching our industry change over the years, and there's a lot more tools, and power being one of them, available to the amateur athlete, the back of the packer, the guys like me, which years ago was only exclusive for the pro athlete. And you could think about nutrition, and you could think about, you know, technology, and you got these Garmins and your Aura rings and all this information. Do you see that as a benefit to sort of the industry in general, or do you get to a point that it's sort of like data overload or
Mm,
nutrition overload, or like give me a sense of what you've seen over the years that you've changed from being a pro athlete
mhm.
to now, and the athletes you're coaching?
Right. I mean, I think that's really more of kind of a personal thing. And it depends on the person. Because I've had athletes who become so obsessed with the numbers, it becomes a big negative for them. I mean, I had an athlete that I coached, that was just really into the numbers, and she was an incredible world class endurance mountain biker, and won tons of huge races. And I remember her calling me up one day and just in tears, and it's like, oh my God, her dog died, something happened, is what's going on. And finally I got her calmed down. I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And she's like, I was supposed to do 190 watts today for 20 minutes, and I did 188, and I'm just like, oh my God. Okay. So I said, okay, we need to tape over the computer on your power meter
Mhm.
computer. And when you come back in, and I gave her new verbiage and languaging so that she could understand the intervals that I wanted her to do. And then give when you come back from your ride, give it to your husband. He's going to download it, send it to me, and then I'll look at it. Right. So I get the data. So there's that extreme. So I think that that's always concerning. If you're that personality, then you can get sucked in, and it can take some of the joy out of the sport. On the other side of it, I think that it's phenomenal, right? I think that having all of this information has made us so much more efficient as athletes and as humans, with our time, right? And for the majority of us, right, we're working stiffs. We got 6 to 10 to 12 hours a week to train, and we want to make the most of that
Mhm.
training, and we want to optimize that. So for those of us, I think that's really important, because then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, now I can be in the right exact physiological training zone that I need to be in. I can do the right amount of time there, and then I'm going to get the maximum training benefit that I can get. And having these recovery tools to measure life stress, I think that's incredible. I mean, that's a huge, big hole that's been filled, that we've had for 20 years, since like 2000, when power meters came out. All of a sudden, we were like, well, we got training stress, but I don't know, like, how you're sleeping, or what your stress is at work or family and kids and all these other things. I don't really know what's going on. And so now we have those tools to kind of fill that hole. So I think those are really powerful tools. But again, the caution is, don't become obsessed with the numbers, and I even have an athlete that wears, a Garmin watch, and they won't even look at the watch and what it tells them until after their workout. right? They won't look and see how their sleep was. They won't look and see if it says they're recovered or not, or their body battery is whatever. Um, because they know that if they do, and it says, oh, red, don't train today, right? Or you're not going to have a good day, then just that mental piece of it will mess them up. So I think that it's definitely one of these balance things that you have to have and think about from your personality as well.
That's super helpful. I'd love to dig in a little bit deeper on the life stress and how, as a coach, you can now incorporate that into the training plan, into your coaching, into the environment. Give us a little bit more flavor there,
Mhm.
Hunter.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some great metrics that these things measure, and one of the ones that I think is very good that allows us to overlay this metric on top of our training data is called heart rate variability (HRV). I'm sure you've heard of it. I'm
Mhm.
sure lots of your listeners have heard of it. It's basically the time between the beats of your heart. The what's very counterintuitive is when you're fresh, when you're recovered and rested, your heart rate variability is very high. That number is, could be 100 milliseconds, but and so that means that the time between the beats is highly variable. It's like right. It's just kind of bouncing around. It's like you're a race car and you're driving. Your thing is ready to go at 6,000 RPM and just ready to take off at any time. It's just ready to go all the way. Versus when you're really fatigued and tired, it becomes very steady. Now it may be 20 milliseconds or 30 milliseconds where it's just like, boom, 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 boom. It's always the same or very close to being the same. So this is a good overall picture of kind of life stress, in my opinion. I think that it really helps to show kind of um, you know the cumulative effect of poor sleep, the cumulative effect of hard training, the cumulative effect of things that we put in our body. Like, I mean, as soon as you get one of these devices and you have a glass of wine, you're like, oh wow, I sent my HRV down 30 points last night,
Mhm.
and it was because I had that glass of wine, or whatever. So I think that's a really good one. Also, the other two that I really like are the time in deep sleep and the time in REM sleep. Both of these are really critical. Most of us get our deep sleep early in our sleep cycle. So when we go to bed, we typically kind of get that deep sleep pretty quickly after going to sleep. Um, then the REM sleep, we get a REM sleep cycle kind of in that midstream. And then we get a lot of our REM sleep at the end of our sleep cycle before we wake up in the last hour or two of our sleep. So I've definitely found that, the people who get an hour and a half or more of REM and an hour and a half of more of deep sleep are more recovered. They have better they sleep better, they recover faster, they do better workouts. So, how do you train deep sleep? Right? How do you train that, right? That's the problem. So I mean, you can eliminate just disturbances in the middle of the night, right? I had one athlete that I worked with that we got we got him using one of the Whoop straps, and he had like 20 times in the middle of the night he was having disturbances that was recording, and I was like, "What in the heck is going on in your bed in the middle of the night?" He's like, "Oh man, I got this dog and cat, and they get up on the bed and they." Turn around, they get up, they get down, they're moving all night long, and they wake me up. I'm like, dude, you cannot sleep with your dog and cat anymore. They are messing up your sleep terribly, And he's like, oh, but they're my babies, and I was like, yeah, but like, look what's happening here. There's data that shows this, and so he tried it for like a week or whatever, and all of a sudden it was like he went down to 5 disturbances per night, got way better deep sleep and REM sleep, and it was obvious, right? So then the dog and cat were out from the
Angry outside the front door. I thought you were going to say that he had just had a baby. Him and his partner had brought a brand new baby home and every 25 minutes, you're up doing something
That would do it
that,
too.
that brought back some memories. So shifting gears a little bit, I would love to dive into nutrition too, and how
Mhm,
you've seen that change over time,
mhm,
the importance of it now, any secret sauce, any secret
mhm.
habits there that you are pretty passionate about.
Yeah, I'm very excited about nutrition and have been for many years of my life, and I've always thought of it as the third leg to the training stool that you sit on. It's like you've got the mental training, the physical training, and you've got the nutrition, what you put in your body, and that's what makes you have a stable stool that you can sit on. So that's been a big focus of mine for a long time, and I was even so much into it that I had a food diary for years, where everything I wrote down in my food diary for a couple of years, trying to find correlations between this food and that food and how I felt and all the stuff. And this was, back in the 90s when there was, no computing power to do stuff like that. I was doing it in a notepad. Um, but I think that a couple of things have happened that we've learned a lot from. Number one, the amount of carbohydrates that you need during endurance exercise is higher than what you might think.
Mm,
And so by keeping a steady stream, more steady than most people do, and I found, even after years of education about this stuff, um, they can have better performances. So, the traditional theory was like, well, wow, 30 grams of carbohydrates per hour was kind of the limit of what you should have. Then some really great studies came out. Dr. Oscar Jukendrup has done some amazing studies in this area, looking and finding out, oh, wow, 60 grams of carbohydrates totally can be absorbed every hour. And then figuring out that having the right glucose and fructose ratio, you can actually increase that to maybe 100 to 120 grams of carbohydrates. That's a lot of carbohydrates. I mean, that's a lot. I think that's probably too much for most people, to be honest. And there's probably some training, some gut training that you can or maybe can't do depending on your gut. Um, so I think that 60 grams to upper range there, maybe 100 maximum, might be a good place to just say, hey, if I stay on top of this, one, I keep my glucose levels at a relatively high rate, a high level, so that I'm not having any kind of crashes, right? So a hypoglycemic crash when the glucose drops down pretty quickly, and then you feel bonky and you're shaky and dizzy, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need food right now, right? We want to avoid that. So I think that's number one. Number two, I think that for sure we're seeing, and this has really happened, I think, in the last 3 to 4 years, we're seeing so much research now on plant-based, whole food plant-based, and seeing how really good that is for your health. And eliminating animal proteins from your diet, I think, is a really good thing overall. Because I think that one, just having plenty of fruits and vegetables, high quality, fats and proteins that are more plant based is really, really good for you. Um, I'm not 100% whole food plant based. I'm probably 90%. I think it's very difficult to be 100% whole food plant based, especially for like a pro or elite athlete, because the food isn't dense, right? So
mm,
vegetables, fruits, grains, beans. Beans are more dense than legumes are more dense than veggies, but the volume you have to eat is massive. If you're like, wow, I'm a pro tour rider, or I'm a pro triathlete or something, it's very difficult to eat that much and keep that up, and your life kind of has to revolve a little bit around food. And it kind of does anyway when you're a pro athlete. but But for the rest of us, right? It's like, well, gosh, we can get a lot of most of our food from whole food plant-based sources, and there's tons of protein, right? Like everybody asks, like, where do you get your protein from? And it's just like, oh man, like that's like such a myth. And all vegetables have protein, now they don't maybe have all 9 essential amino acids that makes it a complete protein. They have almost all 9, but maybe one is really low. Maybe it's just methionine is really low in some things. So that's why you combined different foods. And it's been debunked as well that, it used to be thought, well, gosh, you have to combine them in a single meal. Okay, so rice and beans, corn and rice and beans, those kinds of things together. But now it's, they found that you can have, rice at lunch, and then you can have beans in the evening for dinner. Those still combined to make complete proteins in the body. And when you look at most people's diets as a whole, I think as Americans, we get tons of protein in our normal diet. The basics is like 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And when I look at folks from every level of athlete, triathlete, cyclist, mountain biker, whatever they are, and look at their diet, it's like, they're all around 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight in their normal diet. Like that's like their norm, and they don't even know that they're getting that much protein. And it's like they're not even trying. So it's a very easy thing to get plenty of protein from plant-based. So I think that we're going to see that trend continue to move forward, because I think it's just better for your health, right? It just protects from cancer. It helps with keeping away type 2 diabetes. It protects you from arteriosclerosis. All these things that saturated fats really, contribute to, just doesn't happen from a plant-based thing. So anyway, we'll see those two are pretty big.
That's super insightful. It's interesting. I got into Ironman racing and triathlon so that I could eat all those things that I shouldn't be eating, right? It just kept the equilibrium sort of level. But now that I'm focusing more on performance, to your point, there's other things in my lifestyle that need to improve and change. I'm still resisting it, but we'll get there. Hunter, I'm going to change gears a little bit on you. I'd love to go back when you discovered the benefit of power in training and performance. And like from almost an entrepreneurial perspective, like you come up with this discovery, you see its benefits. When did you realize like this was your passion? Like you're going to start writing books about it. You're going to start coaching to it. Like when did that sort of North Star appear in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. To give a little history, I didn't have, back in the mid '90s, I didn't have a power meter as an athlete. And so when I retired from pro cycling, started coaching, I did that in 96, 97, around 1999, the first power meters came out. And this was the power meter in the hub of the rear wheel. It's big monster, like 2-pound thing. It worked half the time if you were lucky. And it definitely didn't work if it got wet. It was kind of finicky at first. And then I had an athlete come to me in 1999 and say, hey, I got this power meter thing. I don't know what it means. Would you coach me with it? I was like, sure, I'll try. I don't know what it means either. I'd actually worked with an athlete just a little bit before that who had a power meter. So I had a little bit of a sense of what it was, but still didn't really understand it. And then he was really serious about it. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to buy one of these myself. So I bought a power tap and started training with this again as like, oh, let's go do all the same training workouts that I did in the past. the same hills, the same everything. I even started doing some races again because I need to see what this means. Looking at these squiggly lines, if you win a race, if you win a criterium or you win a time trial or you win a road race, what does this mean? So then we both went to the very first ever power seminar in Philadelphia in 2000. It was Dr. Coggin, who's the co-author of our book, Training Racing a Power Meter, Dr. Alan Lim, who is the founder of Scratch Labs Sports Drinks, and Dean Golich, who's a longtime coach working at USA Cycling and other places. So very talented guys. They spoke all day long about training with power, but the theme at the end of the day was like, well, we don't have the software to analyze this data. My client, Kevin Williams, he and I went. Kevin's looked over at me and said, hey, man, I'm a computer programmer. I can build the software. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, this is what I do. I build software. We can build the software and we can figure this out. I was like, oh, well, let's try it. So we started building what we call Cycling Peaks software at the time. And, that was, when we got really serious about launching that piece of software, in 2003, we ended up launching it in August. And it was leading up to that point, that year, 2003, 2002. One, we worked like mad people because we were just, like, we're going to make this happen. But all of a sudden I started seeing all these trends and correlations and things that were, that nobody else knew about. Nobody else even had a clue that they were there. And we brought in Dr. Coggin to help us kind of validate, like, hey, is this a real thing in the physiology of the body that we're seeing here in the data? And so a lot of things, he was like, yeah, this is a real thing. And so we came up with some really cool metrics called training stress score. And he came up with a really cool thing called normalized power, and all kinds of different things came out of this time. And I realized at the point, it was like, man, this is really, really fun. I love statistics. I got straight A's in all statistics classes that I took, and just enjoyed so much the visualization of the data. It's very easy for me to see these correlations and think about how to visualize the data and what it looks like and the way I want it presented. So it's probably around that 2003 period where I realized, like, this was really, really fun and really fascinating. Adding this whole additional layer to endurance sports that was above and beyond, like, just learning how to corner your bike and go down a mountain, or learning what intervals to do, or trying to figure out how to peak an athlete at the right time. It's like, wow, there's this whole other world here that we can discover and really start to make, start to help other people.
And I love it. It's, as you know, I'm starting to focus a lot more on power this year, and I'm feeling the impact already. already. Um, Another question around habits.
Mhm.
Hunter, over the athletes that you've worked with, and even as yourself as a professional athlete, what's the most important habit you see these athletes have?
Hmm. Wow, that's a tough question. That's a tough question. Um, Let me think about that. You know, I think that the from a coaching perspective, the most successful athletes that I've worked with, um, they do at least 80% of the workouts that I prescribe to them.
Mhm.
So they just execute the workouts really well. I think that's about all you can ask for as a coach anyway. I mean, life happens. So there's that 20% that's going to get blown out some way or the other. Um, but the ones who do really, like, say, okay, this is what I'm doing. and they execute those, they're really, really successful. Um, you know, and that's always, that seems a little silly, right? When you hire a coach or you have a coach and you have an athlete who doesn't do the workouts, and you're like, well, why are you paying this person to be your coach and they're not doing the workouts? That doesn't make any sense. Um, so it seems like that would be a given thing. I think the other thing that they prioritize and do really well in is understanding recovery and understanding that, okay, yeah, we've got all these other life stresses in our life, but what can I do to enhance my recovery for the next day? And so when we think about it from that perspective, it's like, okay, gosh, well, how do I start the recovery process immediately as soon as I get done with a workout? Wow. If it's a hard enough workout, you should definitely have a recovery shake, right? You should make sure that in that recovery shake, you've got some really critical things that you put in there. The Morrissey tart cherry, concentrate, put a couple tablespoons of that. That's really been shown now to help enhance recovery. The ketone esters like Delta G makes, put a little bit of ketones in there that enhances the EPO production, the erythroprotein production naturally in your body. Making sure that you've got some berries in there for some antioxidants. Boom, have a really high quality protein shake, and carbohydrate and protein, because you need plenty of carbs right afterwards, at least a 2-to-1 ratio carbs to protein, 3-to-1, maybe even better, 4-to-1, maybe even better carbs to protein after your workout. Then are you stretching, right? Are you making sure, like, am I going to take 10, 15, 20 minutes of time to stretch so that I can maybe make some of these muscles a little more supple, and then also help to regenerate some of these muscles and recover them. And then two, like, what other things do you do in your life? Okay, well, gosh, do you have time? If you're sitting there in the evenings watching TV with the kids or whatever, throw on the compression legs. Do the compression boots in the evenings. It's like you're sitting there in front of the TV anyway. You got 15 minutes of downtime. You're just hanging out. You're not taking away from the family or anything else. Put the compression legs on and get a little more recovery there. And then it's, well, gosh, okay, instead of having that glass of wine at night, which then messes up your REM sleep, just no more alcohol, go to bed a little earlier, get more sleep throughout the night. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I got really good sleep and I did all these other things, and they seem kind of small, but they actually add up and make a really big difference for you cumulatively at the end of that hard training week, at the end of our 2 hard training weeks, etc.
That's super helpful. And I've never thought about sort of starting your recovery the minute you're out of your workout. Like, mentally start thinking about, okay, what am I going to put in my body? Where am I getting my rest? Where's my compression boots? I love that. I love that concept. Hunter, talk to us a little bit about the types of athletes that you work with in your coaching
Mhm.
practice and your training camps, and give us a little sense of peaks.
Sure, absolutely. So, we coach all kinds, all levels. We've had riders who are just getting started in cycling or triathlon or mountain biking or gravel racing, all the way up to riders in the Tour de France, gold medal winning Olympians, everyone in between. The core of our business is really masters athletes, riders who are over 35, all the way up to 75, 80. So right in that range. I think that one, you know, we have very passionate athletes who want to improve. They're willing to put in the time and effort. Their goals may be very modest, or they may be very lofty, and it doesn't really matter from that perspective. It's like, gosh, if you just want to ride a little faster in the local century ride and break 5 hours, then let's go for it. Let's make that happen. Or if it's like, wow, gosh, you want to win Masters National Championship, or you want to get a slot to Kona, or whatever that is, then we go after that as well. So they're really in that range. We have cycling camps, usually 6 a year or so. I'll do a gravel cycling camp and a road cycling camp in Virginia, where I'm based, in a little town called Bedford, right in the Blue Ridge Mountains, right between an area called Roanoke and Lynchburg, the two cities. And those are great camps. And we have people who come there who want to learn how to ride gravel bikes. My road camp is more real training camp. Every single day we do something different. We have sprint day. We have an hour-long climb where we test our functional threshold power on it. We do a 95-mile day. That week almost is kind of like a bicycle stage race. It's a great training week. And then I'll have other camps. This coming year, we're going to Chile in January because, like, well, it's 80, 90 degrees in Chile in January, and it's amazing to ride there. We've got a 7-day camp where we ride through the lakes and volcanoes region for 7 days and kind of cruise down south, which is super fun. February, we've got a base training camp in Florida, in Claremont, Florida, where we'll just get in some big miles and have fun. March, we're going to go and do a gravel camp in Morocco, which is kind of just like a really fun place to go and like cool adventure. Like, hey man, let's go to Morocco and ride gravel bikes. Okay, cool. Let's go. So I've got a camp coming up just actually next week here in October that is going to be for Masters riders 60 plus and over. So we've got about 20 riders coming from 60 all the way. I think our oldest is 78, maybe. And that's going to be super fun. We're going to talk. They're going to get to ride with peers their own ability and ages. And then two, afterwards, we have all these great lectures on longevity and vitality, how to, not just training, right? We're going to talk about training stuff, but what are we doing, to live a little longer and vitality, right? Kick butt doing that, right? Because we all want to, when we're like 80, right? I don't want to be the hunched over old man shuffling along, right? I want to be kicking butt at 80. Right. And still riding my bike and having fun and being strong and living life at 80. And all of us want that. Right. I mean, I think that's a really great thing. So anyway, we're going to have a great time with that. We got lots of fun people we work with.
That's awesome. So how can an audience member find more information on that?
Yeah. So check us out on peakscoachinggroup.com, peakscoachinggroup.com. And, I've got all of our camps up there. I've got our different coaching packages up there. And you can just send us an email as well at info@peakscoachinggroup.com. If you want some information about it, we're happy to answer any questions. And, my job is besides just kind of running the business is I'm eHarmony for our athletes and coaches. So I'm the one you're going to talk to, which is cool because I love talking to people about what their goals and dreams and things are, and then matching them with the right coach for them, which is also fun. So so I enjoy that part. So I was like, yeah, I'll keep doing that. That's fun.
Back to the longevity, and we'll include those links in our show notes. So audience members, if you didn't catch those URLs or the camps, just scroll down and you'll find that information. I got to tell you, Hunter, I think for the first time in a long time, I wish I was older than I currently am so I could be at that camp and talk about longevity and talk about health and being kicking ass at 80. You kind of got me excited about the future. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
I really, really enjoyed our show and our conversation today, learning of how you discovered the power of power meters. It reminds me of sort of me and my consulting business where I had a client years ago come to me, ask a certain question, and that became a specialty in what I do. And it's amazing in life how those opportunities can pop up sort of randomly when they do, but when you look back, it's a perfect straight line. So I really focused on that and could relate. So again, audience members, if you got some value out of today's show, please like the show, please subscribe, send this to your friends and family. Let's spread Hunter's wisdom. Go grab his book, go grab a power meter to improve your performance. But most importantly, give him a call. He'll impact your life for sure.
Awesome, Greg. Well, thank you so much for having me on. This is a super pleasure and great honor. And yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.